I woke up to the sound of someone breathing, right next to my bed. Not loud. Not rushed. Just slow, steady, like they were trying not to be heard. And the worst part, I was completely alone in that cabin. Or at least, I thought I was. I rented the place for 3 nights. Deep in the mountains. No signal. No neighbors. Just trees, endless trees. The owner had told me it was peaceful. That word stuck with me the whole drive up. Peaceful. It didn't feel peaceful when I arrived. The cabin was older than I expected. Wood warped. Windows slightly fogged from the inside. The kind of place that holds smells. Dust, dampness. Something stale. Still, I told myself I was overthinking it. I unpacked. Ate some snacks. Sat by the window watching the trees sway. By sunset, everything was quiet. Too quiet. No insects. No birds. Just wind brushing through branches. That night I locked the door. Checked the windows twice. Then I went to bed. Sometime after midnight. I woke up. That's when I heard it. Breathing. Slow, close, deliberate. I froze. Didn't move a muscle. My eyes adjusted to the darkness. The room was small. 1 bed. 1 chair. A narrow closet near the door. No one there. The breathing stopped. I sat up quickly and turned on the lamp. Nothing. I checked the closet. Empty. Under the bed. Nothing. I told myself it was a dream. It had to be. But I didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, everything felt normal again. Sunlight made the place look less threatening. I even laughed at myself. Until I noticed the chair. It had been near the window when I went to bed. Now it was beside my bed. Facing me. I stood there for a long time just staring at it. I knew I hadn't moved it. I was sure. Still. I told myself I must have. Maybe I dragged it over without thinking. That explanation didn't feel right, but it was better than the alternative. I spent the day outside. Walking around. Trying to clear my head. That's when I found the footprints. Behind the cabin. Fresh. Not mine. They were deep, like whoever made them was heavy. Or carrying weight. They led from the trees, straight to the back door. Then they stopped. Just stopped. No return tracks. No sign of where they went. I checked the door. Locked. That night I didn't turn off the lights. I sat on the bed, listening. Hours passed. Nothing. Then a sound. A soft creak. From inside the cabin. Not the wind. Not the wood settling. This was different. Controlled. Slow. Like someone shifting their weight, trying not to make noise. I grabbed the kitchen knife I'd left on the table. My hands were shaking. Hello. I said. No response. Another creak. Closer this time. From the hallway outside my room. I stepped out slowly. The hallway was dark, even with the lights on. Shadows stretched along the walls. Then I saw it. The closet door at the end of the hallway. It was slightly open. I was sure it had been closed. I moved toward it 1 step at a time. The air felt thick. Hard to breathe. And then, I heard it again. Breathing. From inside the closet. Slow, steady, waiting. I stood there, frozen, knife in my hand. Who's there? I whispered. Silence. Then, the faintest movement. Like fabric brushing against wood. I don't know why, but I reached for the door. My hand was inches away when it slammed shut from the inside. I stumbled back, heart pounding so hard it hurt. Something was in there. Something very real. I ran. Out the front door. Into the cold night air. I didn't stop until I reached my car. I got in. Locked the doors. Started the engine. As the headlights came on, they lit up the front of the cabin. And that's when I saw him. Standing inside. Behind the window. A man. Thin. Pale. Completely still. Just staring at me. His head tilted slightly, like he was curious. I couldn't move. We locked eyes for a few seconds that felt like forever. Then he slowly raised his hand and waved. Not friendly. Not threatening. Just acknowledging. Like he knew I had finally seen him. I drove away after that. Fast. I didn't look back. The police went up there the next day. They called me later. They found him. He'd been living in the crawlspace beneath the cabin. For weeks. Maybe longer. There was a small hidden access panel, right inside that hallway closet. He had food wrappers. Bottles. Blankets. And scratches all along the inside of the walls. Deep ones. Like he'd been moving around inside the cabin without being seen. At night. Watching. Waiting. They said something else too. Something I still can't get out of my head. They found marks, right next to the bed. Indentations on the wooden floor. Exactly where someone would stand. If they were leaning over me. Breathing. Inches from my face. While I slept. The first thing I noticed wasn't the silence, it was the door. It was already open. Just a few inches, slowly moving back and forth like someone had just gone inside. And I knew. I had locked it before leaving. I shouldn't have gone back to that cabin. It sat deep in the woods, about a 2-hour drive from the nearest town. My uncle owned it. Said it was for quiet weekends. No neighbors. No signal. Just trees and more trees. I had been there once before, years ago. Nothing strange. Just old wood, creaky floors and that constant smell of damp pine. This time I went alone. I needed a break. That's what I told myself. But standing there, staring at that half-open door, something felt wrong immediately. I remember gripping my keys tighter. Listening. Nothing. No wind. No birds. Just stillness. I pushed the door open slowly. Hello. My voice sounded small. Like it didn't belong there. No answer. Inside everything looked the same at first. The couch. The old table. The dusty shelves. But then I noticed the chair. It was pulled out. I had left it tucked in. I'm very particular about things like that. I stood there for a moment. Just staring at it. Trying to convince myself I was overthinking. Maybe my uncle had come by. Maybe I forgot. But deep down, I knew I hadn't. I stepped inside anyway. The floor creaked under my weight. Loud in the silence. I closed the door behind me. Locked it. I even checked it twice. Something about that small action made me feel a little safer. I walked through the cabin slowly. Room by room. Kitchen empty. Bathroom, nothing. Bedroom, bed untouched. No signs of anyone. No broken windows. No forced entry. Just that chair. And the door. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. See? Nothing. I said it out loud like I needed to hear it. I dropped my bag and sat down. That's when I heard it. A soft, dull thump. Above me. I froze. There was no second floor. Just a low attic space. Barely tall enough to crawl in. I stared at the ceiling. Another sound. Scrape. Like something shifting. I stood up slowly. Hello. Nothing. Then, a faint sound. Breathing. Not loud. Not clear. But there. Slow. Uneven. Right above me. My chest tightened. I backed away from the center of the room. My eyes fixed on the attic hatch. It was a small square panel, slightly misaligned. I didn't remember it looking like that before. Another scrape. Closer this time. Dust fell lightly from the edges. I didn't think. I just moved. Grabbed my bag. headed for the door. My hands were shaking as I unlocked it, pulled it open, and stopped. There were footprints. Right outside. Fresh. Leading away from the cabin, into the trees. Barefoot. Deep impressions in the dirt. Like whoever made them was heavy. Or dragging something. I stared at them, my heart pounding. They weren't there before. I would have noticed. I stepped outside slowly. The air felt colder now. The forest looked darker. Those footprints, they went straight ahead. Into the thickest part of the trees. I should have left. Got in my car. Drove away. But something pulled at me. Curiosity. Or something worse. I followed them. Just a few steps. Then more. Each footprint, perfectly spaced. Too perfect. No hesitation. No wandering. Just a straight path. After about 20 meters, they stopped. Just ended. No turn. No return. Nothing. I stood there confused. Looking around. Trying to make sense of it. That's when I heard it. Behind me. A slow, dragging step. Coming from the direction of the cabin. I turned. Too slowly. Because by the time I faced it, I realized something that made my stomach drop. Those footprints. They didn't lead away from the cabin. They led toward it. I had followed them, the wrong way. Another step. Closer now. I could hear it clearly. Something moving. Heavy. Uneven. Dragging one leg. I ran. I didn't look back. Branches scratched my arms. My face. I could hear it behind me, keeping pace. Not fast. But steady. Like it knew I couldn't escape. I reached the cabin. The door was open again. Wide this time. I rushed inside. Slammed it shut. Locked it. My breath was ragged. Loud. I backed away slowly. Then I heard it. Right above me. Breathing. Louder now. Wet. Close. I looked up. The attic hatch was open. Completely. Darkness inside. And something. Shifting just beyond the edge. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Then, a hand appeared. Pale. Dirty. Fingers too long. It gripped the edge slowly. Then another. And then a face. Not distorted. Not monstrous. Just a man. But his eyes. They were empty. Like he wasn't looking at me. But through me. He smiled. Slowly. And then he spoke. In a voice that sounded like it hadn't been used in years. You came back. I stumbled backward. Hit the wall. My legs gave out. I watched as he pulled himself down, out of the attic. His movements were wrong. Jerky. Unbalanced. Like his body didn't quite work anymore. He stood there. Too tall. Too thin. His feet. Bare. Covered in dirt. I couldn't look away. He took one step toward me. Dragging his leg. That same sound I heard in the woods. Another step. Closer. I waited. He whispered. My vision blurred. My heart felt like it would explode. I tried to crawl, to move, anything. But I couldn't. He crouched in front of me. Too close. I could smell him. Rotten. Damp. His smile widened. You locked me in last time. My mind snapped. I had never. But then. A memory. Faint. Blurry. Years ago. A noise in the attic. My uncle laughing it off. Probably just an animal. And me. Closing the hatch. Locking it. From the outside. I looked at him. Really looked. And suddenly. I recognized the face. Not clearly. But enough. He leaned closer. His breath cold against my ear. And then. I felt his hands wrap around my throat. Tight. Unrelenting. The last thing I saw before everything went dark was the attic hatch slowly closing again from the inside. I knew something was wrong the moment I saw the second set of footprints, because I had been walking alone for miles. They weren't there before. I would have noticed. Fresh. Deep. Following mine, step for step. I told myself it was nothing. Just my mind playing tricks. The forest was quiet in a way that made your ears ring, like all the sound had been sucked out. No birds. No wind. Just that heavy silence pressing in. I kept walking. The cabin was supposed to be a few minutes ahead. A friend told me about it, an old hunting cabin deep in the woods. Said it was abandoned for years. I needed a place to clear my head, get away from everything. But now I couldn't stop thinking about those footprints. I stopped. Slowly turned around. Nothing. Just trees. Endless trees. Tall. Dark. Too close together. The kind that block out the sky completely. My own footprints stretched back along the dirt path, and beside them. Yeah. Still there. Another set. Same size as mine. Same shape. But deeper, like whoever made them was heavier. Or pressing down harder. I crouched down to look closer. That's when I noticed something worse. They weren't just following me. Sometimes, they stepped on top of my prints. Like whoever it was had been trying to walk exactly where I walked. I stood up fast. Hello. I called out. My voice felt weak out there, swallowed immediately. No answer. I started walking again. Faster this time. The cabin came into view through the trees. Small. Old. Wood panels half rotted. Windows dark and empty like eye sockets. I rushed inside. The door creaked loudly as I pushed it open. The smell hit me first. Damp wood and something else. Something sour. Like old sweat. The inside was worse than I expected. Dust everywhere. A broken table. A mattress in the corner with no sheets. But it was shelter. That's all I needed. I shut the door behind me. Locked it. Then I waited. Silence again. I moved to one of the windows and wiped away dirt with my sleeve. Looked outside. Nothing. No movement. No person. No sound. I laughed nervously, told myself I was being stupid. But I couldn't shake the feeling. That feeling of being watched. I stayed near the window for a while. Just staring out. Waiting for something, anything, to move. That's when I heard it. A footstep. Right outside. Soft but clear. I froze. Another step. Slow. Deliberate. Circling the cabin. My chest tightened. I held my breath without realizing it. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. I stared at it. The handle didn't move. Nothing happened. Seconds passed, maybe minutes. Then, a slow, quiet scrape. Like fingers dragging across the wood. I backed away from the door. My hands were shaking now. I grabbed the only thing I could find, a broken chair leg. The scraping stopped. Silence again. Then suddenly, bang! The door shook violently. I jumped back, nearly dropping the wood. Another bang. Harder this time. The old lock rattled. Go away! I shouted. No response. Just breathing. Heavy, slow. Right on the other side of the door. I could hear it clearly. Whoever it was, they weren't trying to break in anymore. They were just standing there. Listening. Waiting. Minutes dragged by. Eventually, the breathing stopped. No footsteps. Nothing. I didn't move for a long time. I must have stood there for an hour, maybe more, just staring at the door. Finally, I forced myself to check outside. I moved slowly to the window again. Looked out. Empty. No one there. I waited, scanning the trees, the ground. Then I saw the footprints again. Right outside the door. I opened the door carefully, just enough to look down. There they were. My footprints. And the other ones. Side by side. But this time, they didn't come from the forest. They started at the door. Right where I was standing. And led away, into the trees. I felt cold all over. That didn't make sense. There was no way someone could have walked to the cabin without leaving tracks behind them. Unless they hadn't come from outside. I turned slowly, looking back into the cabin. At the dusty floor. At my own footprints, leading from the door to the center of the room. And then stopping. But beside them, there was another set. Same size. Same shape. Standing right behind where I had been. Perfectly still. Waiting. I ran. I didn't even grab my bag. I just ran straight into the forest without looking back. Branches hit my face. My lungs burned. I didn't stop. But the whole time, I could hear it. Footsteps. Right behind me. Matching mine. Step for step. And no matter how fast I ran, they never got closer. But they never fell behind either. When I finally reached the road, the sound stopped. Just like that. I turned around one last time. The forest stood there. Silent. Empty. No movement. No footprints this time. Nothing. I left that place and never went back. But sometimes, late at night, when everything is quiet, I hear it again. One extra step. Right after mine. I woke up because someone was breathing right outside my window. Slow, steady, too close to be an animal. At first I thought it was part of a dream, until the glass fogged up from the outside. I froze. The cabin was miles from anything. No neighbors. No roads nearby. Just trees, thick, endless forest in every direction. I had rented it for a weekend to get away from everything. No signal. No noise. Just silence. But that night, the silence felt wrong. I didn't move. I just stared at the window across the room. The curtains were thin. I could see the shape of something standing there, blocking what little moonlight slipped through the trees. The breathing stopped. And then, a soft scrape. Like fingers dragging slowly across the glass. I grabbed my phone. No service. Of course. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. I turned on the flashlight and pointed it toward the window. Nothing. The shape was gone. I waited. Listened. Just the trees outside. Shifting slightly in the wind. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe a branch. Maybe some animal had wandered too close. I kept repeating that in my head until my breathing slowed down. But I didn't sleep. I stayed awake for hours just staring into the dark. Every tiny sound felt louder than it should be. The cabin creaked. The floor popped. Once I swear I heard something brushing against the wall outside, moving slowly like it was circling. Around 3 a.m. I heard it again. Footsteps. Not loud. Not heavy. But clear. Crunching on gravel just outside the cabin. One step, then another, slow and careful. I sat up in bed, my chest tight. The footsteps stopped right outside the front door. Then silence. I waited for a knock. It didn't come. Instead, I heard the handle move. Just slightly. A soft click, like someone testing if it was locked. I held my breath so hard it hurt. The handle moved again. Slower this time. More deliberate. Click. Click. Whoever it was, they weren't in a hurry. I quietly slid out of bed and grabbed the kitchen knife I had left on the counter. It felt stupid, but it was all I had. The handle stopped moving. Then, footsteps again. But this time they didn't walk away. They moved along the side of the cabin, slow, dragging, like the person was running their hand along the wall as they walked. I followed the sound with my eyes, even though I couldn't see anything. It reached the back of the cabin, where the bedroom window was. Where I was. The breathing came back. Right outside. Closer than before. I could hear it clearly now. Wet. Uneven. Like the person was trying to stay quiet but couldn't control it. I stepped back from the window. Then a whisper. "I know you're awake." My blood went cold. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The voice was low. Calm. Almost amused. A finger tapped lightly against the glass. "I saw you move." I felt something inside me snap. Pure panic. I rushed forward and yanked the curtain open, pointing the knife and the flashlight at the window. There was no one there. Just my own reflection, pale, shaking, terrified. But the glass. It wasn't clear anymore. There were marks on it. From the outside. Long streaks, like someone had been dragging their fingers down slowly, over and over again. And right in the center. A handprint. Not pressed flat but dragged downward, like whoever made it had been standing there for a long time, sliding their hand down the glass again and again. I backed away. I didn't even try to understand it anymore. I just needed to leave. I grabbed my keys, my bag, everything I could carry. I didn't care about the dark or the forest. Anything was better than staying in that cabin. I unlocked the door slowly. Every second feeling like it might burst open from the other side. But it didn't. I stepped out. The air was cold. Still. Too still. I walked quickly to my car, parked a few meters away. My flashlight beam shook across the ground, and that's when I saw it. Footprints. Barefoot. Circling the cabin. Over and over. Dozens of loops, maybe more. Like someone had been walking around it for hours, never leaving, never stopping. My stomach twisted. I reached my car and unlocked it, practically throwing myself inside. I slammed the door and locked it immediately. That's when I noticed the windshield. There was something written on it. From the outside. Finger marks, smeared across the glass. I leaned closer. My breath catching as I read it. "Why did you open the curtain?" My heart started pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. And then. A soft sound came from the back seat. A slow, shaky inhale. Right behind me. I turned. And there. Crouched low on the floor. Barely visible in the dark. Was a man. Barefoot. Smiling. His lips cracked and dry, his eyes wide, unblinking. "I told you," he whispered, his breath filling the car. "I saw you move." I heard someone whisper my name. From inside the cabin. Before I even touched the door. I hadn't told anyone I was coming up here. No one knew this place existed except my uncle, and he'd been dead for 3 years. I stood there in the dark, keys in my hand, staring at the broken windows. The forest around me was dead quiet. No wind. No insects. Just that one moment, that voice. I told myself it was nothing. Just the wind. Just my imagination. But there was no wind. The cabin was deeper in the woods than I remembered. The road had practically disappeared. Trees had grown over parts of it. I almost turned back twice. No signal. No lights. Just miles of forest. My uncle used to bring me here as a kid. Fishing. Hunting. Quiet weekends away from everything. After he died, the place was left to rot. I don't even know why I came back. Maybe nostalgia. Maybe guilt. Maybe I just wanted to prove to myself I wasn't afraid of being alone. The front door creaked open slowly. I didn't remember leaving it unlocked, but then again, it had been years. The air inside was thick. Damp. It smelled like old wood and something else, something sour. I stepped in. The floor groaned under my boots. Everything was where it should be. The table. The chairs. The fireplace. But it felt wrong. Like someone had moved things, then tried to put them back exactly how they were. I stood still, listening. Nothing. Then, a soft thud. Upstairs. I froze. Hello. I called out. No answer. Just silence. Stretching too long. I told myself it was an animal. Maybe a raccoon. Maybe something got in through the roof. I grabbed the flashlight from my bag and pointed it toward the stairs. Each step creaked as I climbed. Loud. Too loud. Halfway up, I noticed something. Footprints. In the dust. Bare feet. Fresh. At the top of the stairs, the hallway felt tighter than I remembered. The beam of my flashlight shook slightly as I moved it from door to door. The first room was empty. The second, empty too. The third door was slightly open. That's where the smell was strongest. Rotten. Sweet. Sick. I pushed it open slowly. The room was dark, but I could see the bed. Something was wrong with it. The sheets were pulled tight, too tight. Like someone had tucked them in carefully. And then I saw the shape underneath. My stomach dropped. It looked like a person, lying perfectly still under the blanket. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Hello. I whispered. The shape didn't move. I took one step closer. Then another. My hand reached out, shaking, and grabbed the edge of the sheet. I pulled it back. It wasn't a person. It was clothes. Stuffed. Shirt. Pants. Towels, arranged to look like a body. But the head was a pillow. And on it, drawn with something dark, was a face. A smiling face. Wide. Messy. Wrong. I stumbled back. That's when I heard it. Behind me. Breathing. Slow close, right at my neck. I turned around too fast and slipped, hitting the wall. The flashlight dropped, spinning across the floor. The beam flashed across the room. For a split second, I saw him. Standing in the corner. Thin. Bare. His skin dirty, almost gray. Eyes wide. Reflecting the light. He didn't move. Just stared. Then the light spun away again. Darkness. I scrambled for the flashlight, hands shaking, heart slamming in my chest. When I picked it up and turned it back, he was gone. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't look back. Down the stairs. Almost fell. Crashed into the table. The front door was right there. I grabbed the handle. Locked. I swear. I hadn't locked it. My hands fumbled with the latch. Behind me, footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Bare feet on wood. Step creak. Step creak. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. The door wouldn't open. Then, a hand touched my shoulder. Cold. Dry. Real. I froze. He leaned close to my ear. I could feel his breath. And he whispered, "You came back." I don't remember how I got out. I think I slammed backward through the door. Maybe it wasn't locked. Maybe I imagined it. I ran into the forest. Didn't stop. Didn't look back. Branches cut my arms. I fell twice. Kept running. I didn't stop until I reached the road. The police went back with me the next day. They searched the cabin. No one was there. No footprints. No signs of anyone living inside. Just dust. And decay. But they did find something. In the upstairs room. On the bed. The same body made of clothes. Exactly how I saw it. Except, the face on the pillow was different. It wasn't a messy drawing anymore. It was detailed. Careful. And it looked exactly like me. The first night I woke up because something was breathing right outside my window. Slow, heavy, like it was trying not to be heard. I held my breath and listened, and then it stopped the moment I moved. That was when I realized, whatever it was, it knew I was awake. I shouldn't have rented that cabin. It was cheap for a reason. Deep in the mountains, miles away from the nearest town, surrounded by thick forest that swallowed sound. No signal. No neighbors. Just silence, the kind that presses against your ears. I told myself I needed the isolation. A break. Time to think. The first day was normal. I unpacked, checked the place, even walked a bit into the woods. Everything felt still. Too still. No birds. No insects. Just wind through the trees. By night, that silence turned into something else. I locked the doors. Closed the curtains. Sat by the small fireplace until I got tired. Around midnight, I went to bed. That's when I heard it for the first time. Footsteps. Slow, careful. Circling the cabin. I froze. My heart started pounding so loud I was sure whoever was outside could hear it. I told myself it was an animal. Maybe a deer. But the steps were too measured, too deliberate. Crunch, pause, crunch. Right outside my wall. I grabbed my phone. No signal. Of course. The footsteps stopped near the front door. Then, a soft scrape. Like fingers dragging lightly across the wood. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Minutes passed. Maybe longer. Eventually the sound faded. I don't remember falling asleep. I just remember waking up to daylight, convincing myself it was nothing. Until I checked the door. Long, thin scratch marks ran across it. Too straight. Too evenly spaced. Like someone had tested it. I told myself I was overthinking. Packed my bag, almost left. But then I laughed it off. I wasn't going to let my imagination win. That was my mistake. The second night I kept the lights off. Sat in the dark, listening. Waiting. Around 1 a.m., it came back. This time closer. Footsteps again, but faster. Less careful. Circling. Stopping. Circling again. Then I heard something new. Breathing. Right outside the wall behind me. Slow, wet, uneven. I turned my head slowly toward the window, but the curtain was drawn. And then, it whispered something. Not words. Just a low, broken murmur, like someone trying to form sounds they'd forgotten how to make. I felt my chest tighten. This wasn't an animal. I stood up, grabbed a kitchen knife and moved toward the door. My hands were shaking. The whispering stopped. The breathing stopped. Silence again. I stood there for what felt like forever, then slowly unlocked the door. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I needed proof. I opened it just a crack. Nothing. Cold air rushed in. The forest stood still in the darkness. I stepped outside. That's when I saw the footprints. Barefoot. Deep impressions in the dirt. Circling the cabin over and over. Dozens of times. Too many to count. And they weren't random. They were tight. Controlled. Like someone had been pacing. Waiting. I followed them with my eyes, and they led around to the back of the cabin. I hesitated, then walked around. The back window. My bedroom window. The dirt beneath it was disturbed, more than anywhere else. And then I saw it. A handprint. Pressed against the outside of the glass. I slowly looked up. There was a faint smear on the window, right at face level. Like someone had been standing there. Watching me sleep. I ran back inside. Locked everything. Didn't sleep at all that night. Morning came. I was done. I packed everything. Didn't care about the money. I just wanted out. As I grabbed my bag and headed for the door, something made me stop. The mirror in the hallway. I don't know why I looked at it, but I did. And I wish I hadn't. Behind me, on the wall, something was written. It wasn't there before. I know it wasn't. 4 words. Scratched deep into the wood. I saw you first. My stomach dropped. My hands went numb. Because I had locked every door. Every window. No one could have gotten in. Slowly. I turned around. And that's when I noticed the closet door in the corner of the room. Slightly open. Just enough to show darkness inside. And from that darkness, I heard it again. That same breathing. Slow, heavy. Right there. Inside the cabin with me. The knocking started before I even unlocked the cabin door. Slow, steady, like someone inside already knew I was coming. I remember freezing on the porch, my hand still on the key, listening. Then it stopped, the moment I held my breath. I shouldn't have gone up there alone. It was supposed to be a quiet weekend. Just me, a rented cabin deep in the mountains, miles away from the nearest road. No signal. No neighbors. That was the point. I needed silence, space to think. The owner had left the key under a rock just like he said. Nothing unusual. But that knocking. I told myself it was just the wood settling. Old cabins make noise. Everyone knows that. Still, it didn't sound like wood. I unlocked the door slowly and pushed it open. The inside smelled damp. Closed up. Dust floated in the air. Everything looked normal. A small table. A couch. A narrow hallway leading to the bedroom. Empty. I stepped inside and shut the door behind me. The moment the latch clicked, I heard it again. 3 knocks. This time it came from the hallway. I didn't move at first. My brain was trying to make sense of it. Pipes? Maybe water in the walls. But the rhythm was wrong. Too deliberate. I grabbed my phone. No signal. Of course. Hello. I said, my voice sounding smaller than I expected. No answer. I told myself to relax. I walked down the hallway slowly, each step careful, listening. The bedroom door at the end was slightly open. Just a crack. I pushed it. Empty room. Bed. Window. Closet. Nothing else. I checked the closet too. Nothing. No one. I actually laughed a little. Nervous, embarrassed. I was scaring myself. I went back to the main room, dropped my bag and tried to settle in. Started a small fire. The light helped. The warmth helped. For a while, everything was quiet. Then night came. And the sounds started again. Soft at first. Barely there. Like someone moving outside. Leaves crunching. Slow footsteps circling the cabin. I froze on the couch, listening. Step, pause, step. Not random. Controlled. Like they were trying not to be heard. I got up and went to the window. It was too dark to see anything. Just my own reflection staring back. The footsteps stopped. I stood there for a long time, waiting. Nothing. Then, right behind me. A breath. Close. Too close. I spun around. Nothing. But I felt it. Warm air on the back of my neck. Someone had been standing there. I swear it. I grabbed the fireplace poker without thinking. My heart was pounding so loud it hurt. This isn't funny. I shouted, though I had no idea who I was talking to. Silence. Then, a creak. The hallway again. Slow. Deliberate footsteps. Inside the cabin. I know what I heard. Someone was walking down that hallway. I backed up, gripping the poker, staring straight at it. The bedroom door, slowly, opened wider. No rush. No noise except the wood dragging against the floor. I couldn't see inside. Just darkness. And then, a shape moved. Not clearly. Just enough to break the blackness. Something was there. I didn't wait. I ran for the front door, yanked it open, and stumbled outside into the cold night air. I didn't even grab my jacket. I kept running until I reached my car. Hands shaking, I fumbled with the keys, dropped them, picked them up again. When I finally got inside and locked the doors, I looked back at the cabin. The front door was still open. And in the doorway, someone was standing there. Tall. Still. Watching me. I couldn't see their face. Just the outline. I started the engine and sped down the dirt road without looking back again. I didn't stop until I hit the main highway. I went straight to the nearest gas station and called the owner. I told him everything. The knocking. The footsteps. The figure. There was a long pause on the line. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. I thought I told you not to use that cabin. What? I said. I sold that place 6 months ago, he said. To a guy who never left. I didn't understand. What do you mean? Another pause. They found someone living in the walls, he said quietly. After the new owner disappeared, police searched the place. My throat went dry. They found food wrappers, blankets, tools. Whoever it was had been there for a long time, moving between the walls and the crawlspace. I felt sick. They never caught him, the owner added. And after that, no one wanted the property. I stopped renting it out. But I booked it through your listing, I said. I took that listing down months ago. The line went silent. That's when I realized something. When I arrived earlier that day, the key wasn't under a rock. It was already in the door. And when I first heard that knocking, it didn't come from the walls. It came from inside the cabin. Like someone was trying to get out. The first thing I noticed was the smell, not wood, not damp, something metallic. Like blood. Then I saw the scratch marks on the inside of the cabin door, long, deep, like someone had tried to get out. That's when I realized. The lock was on the outside when I arrived. I shouldn't have gone there alone. I know that now. It was supposed to be a quiet weekend. A break. No signal, no people. Just a small cabin deep in the forest. I found it listed online. Cheap. Too cheap, honestly. But I didn't think much of it at the time. The drive took hours. The road disappeared into dirt, then into nothing but a narrow path between trees. By the time I got there, the sun was already dropping behind the hills. The cabin looked older than the pictures, darker. The wood was almost black, like it had soaked up years of rain and something else I couldn't name. I remember standing there, listening. No birds. No wind. Just silence. I unlocked the door. It creaked open slowly. The smell hit me immediately. Not strong, just faint. Metallic. Wrong. Inside was simple. One bed. One table. A small window. Dust everywhere. But something felt off. Like the place had been used recently, even though it clearly hadn't been cleaned in years. I told myself I was imagining things. I dropped my bag. Closed the door. Locked it. That's when I noticed the scratches. On the inside of the door. Deep grooves. At about chest height. Dragged downward, again and again, like someone had been desperate. I ran my fingers over them. The wood was splintered. Something about it made my stomach turn. I laughed it off. Nervous. Told myself maybe it was just damage. Old wood. Animals. Still. I checked the lock again. It was a heavy bolt. Thick. On the outside. I froze. I slowly opened the door again and stepped out. Looked at it carefully. The bolt. It was definitely designed to be secured from the outside. I felt that first real wave of unease. Why would a cabin have a lock like that? I told myself it was nothing. Maybe for security. Maybe I was overthinking. I went back in. Closed the door. Didn't lock it this time. Night came fast. The forest went black. No moonlight made it through the trees. I turned on a small lantern I brought with me. The light barely filled the room. That's when I heard it. A step. Outside. Soft, slow, deliberate. I froze. Another step. Crunching leaves. I held my breath. Hello. I called out. No answer. The footsteps stopped. Then silence again. I told myself it was an animal. Had to be. But animals don't stop when you call out. Animals don't walk like that, slow, measured. I moved closer to the window. Peered through the glass. It was too dark to see anything clearly. Just shapes. Trees. Shadows. Then, movement. Something passed between the trees. Too tall. Too upright. Gone in a second. My chest tightened. I stepped back. The floor creaked under me. And immediately, from outside, the footsteps started again. Closer this time. Circling the cabin. One side then the other. Crunch, step, crunch, step. Like whoever it was walking around, checking. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then I heard something worse. Breathing. Right outside the door. Slow. Heavy. Too controlled to be an animal. I stared at the door. My hands shaking. The handle moved slightly. Just a small twitch. Then it stopped. Whoever it was, didn't try to open it. Instead, I heard a soft metallic sound. A click. My heart dropped. The bolt. Outside. Sliding into place. I rushed to the door and pulled it open. It didn't budge. I slammed into it. Pulled harder. Nothing. I was locked in. From the outside. I started shouting. Yelling. Kicking the door. My voice echoed into the forest, swallowed by it. No response. Only footsteps. Slowly moving away. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the corner, holding a knife from my bag. The lantern flickering. Every sound made me flinch. Sometimes. I heard footsteps again. Sometimes breathing. Once. I heard something dragging along the outer wall. Slow, scraping, like fingers. Morning finally came. Light crept through the window. Weak but enough. I rushed to the door. Tried it again. This time, it opened easily. The bolt was undone. I stepped outside carefully. The forest looked normal again. Quiet. Empty. For a moment. I thought maybe I imagined it. Until I looked down. Footprints. Human. Circling the cabin. Dozens of them. Back and forth, over and over, like someone had been walking all night. And then I saw something else. Near the side of the cabin. A small pile of objects. Old things. A torn backpack. A shoe. A phone cracked. And bones. Human bones. Not many, but enough. My stomach turned. I stumbled back toward my car, panic rising. That's when I noticed the last thing. Carved into the wood beside the door. Fresh. Deep. Words I know weren't there before. I let you out. Below it, another line. Next time, don't leave. The first thing I noticed was the second set of footprints. They were already there, circling the cabin, even though I had just arrived. And they weren't mine. I went to the cabin to get away from everything. No signal. No people. Just trees for miles. It belonged to my uncle, who hadn't used it in years. He told me it was peaceful. That's all I wanted. The road ended about a mile before the place. I had to walk the rest. The forest was too quiet, like the kind of silence that presses against your ears. When I reached the clearing, I saw the cabin exactly where I expected. Small. Old. One door. Two windows. Nothing unusual at first. Then I looked down. Footprints. Fresh ones. They circled the cabin slowly, over and over, like someone had been walking around it for a long time. I froze. My first thought was that maybe my uncle had come up here recently. But the prints were too sharp, too recent. The dirt was still slightly damp where they pressed in. And there was something else. They never led away. Just circles. I told myself I was overthinking. Maybe someone passed through. Maybe they left another way. I didn't want to turn back. I needed this break. So I went inside. The cabin smelled like dust and old wood. Nothing looked disturbed. The furniture was covered, the windows shut tight. No signs anyone had been inside. I locked the door anyway. Just in case. The first hour was fine. I unpacked. Sat down. Tried to relax. But the silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It felt heavy. Every little sound stood out. The creak of the floor. The soft ticking of something shifting in the walls. My own breathing. Louder than it should have been. Then I heard it. A step. Outside. I held my breath. Another step. Slow. Careful. Right outside the wall. I didn't move. I just listened. The steps continued, circling the cabin. Exactly like the footprints. One step, pause, another step. Over and over. I told myself it was an animal. It had to be. But it didn't sound like one. It was too slow. Too deliberate. Like someone trying not to be heard. I crept toward the window. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would give me away. I moved the curtain just a little. Nothing. Just trees. But the footsteps didn't stop. They were closer now. Right beneath the window. I stepped back. Minutes passed. Maybe longer. The footsteps kept going. Then they stopped. Right outside the door. Silence. I stared at the handle. Waiting. Hoping it wouldn't move. It didn't. But I heard something else. Breathing. Slow. Heavy. On the other side. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a rusted fireplace poker. My hands were shaking. The breathing stayed there for what felt like forever. Then, a soft scrape. Like fingers dragging across the wood. Right beside the door. I couldn't take it anymore. I shouted, "Who's there?" No answer. Just silence. Then, footsteps again. Moving away. Slowly. Back into the trees. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the corner, holding that poker, staring at the door. Every sound made me flinch. But nothing else happened. Eventually, the sky started to lighten. Morning. I felt stupid. Exhausted. I told myself I'd imagine most of it. Until I stepped outside. The footprints were back. But now there were more. Dozens. All around the cabin. Overlapping. Like someone had spent the entire night walking in circles. Watching. Waiting. And then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. A second set of prints. Different. Barefoot. They didn't circle. They went straight to the window. The one I stood at. And stopped. Right below it. I followed them with my eyes. They didn't leave either. They just ended there. Like whoever made them had been standing in that exact spot. 4 hours. I packed my things immediately. I didn't care how ridiculous it felt. I just needed to leave. As I walked away from the cabin, I couldn't stop looking over my shoulder. Halfway down the trail. I saw it. Movement. Between the trees. Far behind me. Someone. Stepping slowly, keeping pace. Not trying to hide anymore. I walked faster. So did it. I started to run. Branches snapped behind me. Heavy steps. Close. Too close. I didn't dare look back again. Not until I reached my car. I slammed the door, locked it, and looked up. And that's when I saw him. He was standing at the edge of the trees. Completely still. Watching me. Barefoot. Thin. Dirty. His face, expressionless. But his eyes. They weren't on me. They were fixed on the back seat. My heart stopped. Slowly. I turned around. And there, pressed low against the floor behind my seat, was another man. Curled up. Smiling. Breathing softly, like he'd been there the whole time.